What's up guys, Ash here from Fighting Spirit, and thankfully today we're going to be starting off on the right foot for my first ever tie pads review on the KPLC5s, or the lightweight tie pads from Fairtex. For my first ever tie pads review, it only made sense to go with one of the OG brands of Muay Thai. For most of you who clicked on this video, you probably know that brands like Fairtex are as synonymous to Muay Thai as, say, Nike is to basketball. From boxing gloves to tie shorts, Fairtex is one of the probably most renowned and most reputable ones across the globe. So I decided to go a little bit off the normal beaten track and decided to go with a tie pad that isn't fully leather bound, is too bulky or too old school. The Fairtex lightweight tie pads are a little bit more new school when it comes to their thinking of padding and when it comes to their thinking of their casings. As always, before giving you my thoughts and review, let's go over the craftsmanship of these bad boys and see if Fairtex have made another stellar Thai boxing product. Starting off first with the weight, and as the name states, these bad boys only weigh 1 kilo a piece, and with only about 10 grams in between the two. Aesthetically speaking, these are a really crisp, really sleek pair of tie pads. The matte black finish with the metallic gold screening and red lacing just comes together really nicely. The target screen you can see here is really more like the swoosh is to Nike with Fairtex. This round target, if you've ever seen it in a Thai boxing gym, usually resembles a product, especially a coaching product made by Fairtex. There is also, I would say, almost like a Louis Vuitton-esque screen at the top, which is a really nice addition. And the only real area of this pad where I think could have been done a little better is actually the stitched logo on the forearm. Now don't get me wrong, Fairtex's OG logo is iconic, but for a product like this, having a black label with maybe a gold metallic finish in the stitching just would have been such a nice cherry on top. Now, if you've seen my Fairtex Focus Mints review, you'll know exactly how much I ramble on about their choice of microfiber leather. And while there are a lot of boxers out there, me included, who do love a good cowhide, a good animal leather, products, especially Muay Thai products, can really benefit from using a leather material like this. Now, from my experience, microfiber leather has done an incredible job at wicking away sweat. And unless a leather product is covered in a repellent or is covered in a gloss finish, in my opinion, it just absorbs sweat a lot easier in comparison. Let's move on to the stitching and the lacing, and Fairtex have done an incredible job all over with this pad, but let's firstly talk about the front panel, which has been stitched in excellently behind the leather. There's no exposure of stitching here anywhere, so if you were to graze it, or if you were to brush it with a glove, or from any impact, having that stitching done internally just ensures that that wear and tear is minimized and stopping the separation from the front and the side panels. The lacing you can see on the back is also done incredibly well. They've even managed to hide the endings on the bottom of this pad in under itself very well. And normally with basically hole punches that they'd use into this leather, Fairtex have done a little bit of a step above and actually added a bit of canvas over the top but underneath the lacing. So when you pull those holes together, there's a much less likely chance of it actually pulling apart and tearing. And staying along with the backside, there's a lot going on here from what you can see. The handlebar with its rivets, with the double stitching, with the dual pullback straps, which also has double stitching, the Velcro, the padding underneath the arms, the forearm padding, which also has double stitching put in. Just all in all, a fantastic craftsmanship from Fairtex in many aspects. They haven't cheapened out with nasty metal on the forearm straps either. All in all, even looking in comparison to both pads, they've just outdone themselves. Everything is stitched up magnificently. Now, one of the critical aspects of a tie pad, which makes all the difference, is how well the forearm straps are made, whether or not it gives you good security and good ability to maneuver the pads that you're using. If you have a floppy grip and there's nothing holding you towards the pads, you're honestly better off fishing out for a new pair. The KPLC5s come with dual pullback straps on the upper and lower arm, and they've pulled back together super nicely. There's also additional forearm padding underneath, which sits on top of the arm. So if you tighten up that strap really hard, you're still going to feel quite comfortable when locked into place. And just lastly, I find that the gap between the lower forearm, the upper arm, and the handle is perfect for most adults. In my opinion, the ergonomics are fantastic. Everything together just comes along effortlessly, and I really don't have to make much of an effort in able to grab onto this pad. Now, the next vital area of any tie pad has got to be its padding. And in this case, I think Fairtex have gone for a little bit of a more safety aspect in comparison to your more traditional tie pads that are a little bit harder, a little bit stiffer, and encased in a very thick leather bound case. The plush forearm pillow that you've got here, which starts at about 40 mils, I'd guess, which tapers down to the end of the forearm, is super soft, super comfortable, and molds to my forearm incredibly well. I've tested several pairs of tie pads that have used a forearm pad before, and where most fail, Fairtex has absolutely nailed it. In combination of the thickness of the foam, obviously the amount of foam, and the density of that foam. Usually when you find some that aren't doing so well, they're either too hard or too soft, which actually imbalances the tie pad, whereas these melt to your forearm, making it feel so nice and secure no matter how tight you do up your arm straps. Now, the padding system on the front of the KPLC5s is an absolute winner. A for shock absorption and B for protection for both parties. And while I haven't really had the opportunity to open up these tie pads because money doesn't grow on trees, I'm guessing there's at the very least 3 to 4 layers of foam just on the target area itself, from here to here, a little bit softer at the front and gradually getting harder as we go back until it hits the forearm padding. Now, Fairtex have actually stated that they've improved the padding in this model of tie pad, but I'm not sure when that statement was made or when the error may have showed up that they weren't being so durable, but even with regular daily use, I would absolutely believe that these would last at least 12 months. What I did notice though, which may have to do with that statement, is the additional layer of padding you can just see on the front here. The top and the bottom obviously concaves like a curved pad, but there seems to be an additional layer that's placed along the front, right in the middle of the target area. This added layer, I think, gives you even more softer feedback, and even though it isn't the thickest additional layer, it does add a little bit of extra bounce and then goes to more of, say, a medium to a stiffer feel if you were to hit it with a solid kick or knee. The stiff inner layers that I talked about before, I actually believe may actually have a PVC sheet within them, which actually adds to the structure of these pads even more. As you can see, it's incredibly hard for me to try and bend these with both hands. And lastly, before I give my feedback, the last and most important piece of any tie pad has got to be the handlebar. Now, I find that many brands can make a great tie pad into a terrible one simply because they don't nail the handlebar. Many brands, unfortunately, or maybe the manufacturers accidentally make a handlebar too long, making it really floppy and hard for you to grip, or really short and actually closing so close to your fingers that they actually brush or bang against the tie pad and actually crushing them a little bit because there's no gap at all between the handle and the padding itself. And while Fairtex do have a slightly larger handlebar, I think this is the perfect move due to the additional forearm padding here, as it gives me a result of a really nice, really natural, and really neutral position for my hands and my forearms to be able to catch. Now, talking about my feedback on these pads, when I first received them, I was really a little bit hesitant as to how light and how soft they were compared to many traditional tie pads you see in the market. But for a few months after testing these bad boys, I've actually fallen in love with them as my daily driver tie pads, especially for how versatile they are with every client or every student that you train with. Their softness is forgiving enough, and most clients, regardless of how good or how strong they are, still get a reasonable amount of feedback on these pads. And to the beginners who like to maybe fumble around, maybe not punch correctly or kick correctly, aren't going to get nearly as hurt if they land a shot wrong. However, with all the other features that I talked about before, the handlebar placement, the forearm padding, the double straps, you've got really a very ergonomic set of tie pads that you can hold all day with very little discomfort. They handle themselves well, they don't slip around at all, and they have just held their shape perfectly over the last, say, 5, 6, 7 months. And all in all, I think these are a perfect tie pad for those looking for something that's an all-rounder. It's comfortable, it's protective, and most importantly, it's durable. Now, before we talk value, I bought these bad boys from Shogun Martial Arts. I will leave a link in the description below in case you want to grab yourself a pair. So in terms of value, for 239 Aussie dollars, I do feel that the KPLC5s are very slightly overpriced. But don't get me wrong, the quality and the features are there, but I just think $239 for these is slightly over the mark you would expect. And as renowned as Fairtex is, the micro mitts that I have purchased and reviewed in a previous video weren't without their faults. And in terms of recommendations, I absolutely recommend these tie pads for anyone, whether you're a beginner tie pad holder or a professional. I think these pads are going to look after you beautifully. The only trainers I wouldn't recommend these tie pads to are those who love something a little bit heavier, a little bit thicker, that provides amazing feedback for the boxer, but still allows the pad holders to feel everything that's coming through so they understand whether or not their boxer hit correctly. There are also pad holders out there like myself who love something a little bit more compact, a little bit thinner, so this may not be the best pad for you. There is a single strap model which is a little bit smaller, but you're still looking at something a little bit thicker and a little bit more square. And that's it, legends. Thanks so much for sticking around for the full review. If you enjoyed this video and if it even enticed you to buy a set of tie pads, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and also if you have any questions regarding any fight gear at all or any products that you'd like me to review in the future, always leave them down below. And lastly, if you're still in the mood for any of my content, I'll leave some links around so you can check them out. Can't wait to bring out another gear review for you guys soon, and Happy New Year to all of you also. Bye.